Yes, today is June 27th, 2024. My name is Jo Reingold, and I'm here interviewing Ira Nevelow. Good afternoon, Ira.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for doing this with us. Tell us whatever you'd like to about your family background, whatever you know about your grandparents, your parents, where they came from, where they lived, what kind of work they did, etc.
Happy to do it. On my dad's side, my grandparents were born in Russia, Western Russia. They came to the U.S. in 1907, and as opposed to many people who landed in Galveston and then spread out elsewhere, they landed in Galveston and stayed there. He had a jewelry store, and they came over. They had my two aunts were born prior to the trip, so they were maybe 1 and 3 when they came over. They had 3 other children, including my dad, afterwards. Dad was very late in the group. His oldest sister was 21 years older than he was, which made for an interesting thing when it came time to go to college, and he's going to college with his niece from that marriage. But
do you happen to know, I'm just curious,
yes,
why they picked that time to come over and why Galveston?
I do not know.
No, I'm just curious. Okay.
I will tell you, his brother, my grandfather's brother, came over at the same time, or somewhere near then. So I think the two brothers deciding to come over at the same time may have had something to do with it. Again, if you look at the history, the Russian-Japanese War, I think it was either in the middle of it or was just wrapping up at that time. So I'm sure a number of people not wanting to be forcibly put into the army got out of there. And obviously, 10 years and change later, Lenin and the communists take over. So I would imagine things were not good, and the hope of America was probably the draw on that. Of my dad's 4 siblings, 3 stayed in Galveston. They did not leave. Only one of the 3 got married, but the 3 of them stayed in Galveston for a while. The other sister was in Houston. And then she and her second husband eventually moved to Florida. But so they were all there. On my mother's side, it actually starts with the great-grandparents. Jacob Ungerman came in through Ellis Island in 1891. He did not bring the rest of the family, which was his wife and 3 children at the time, including my grandfather. He somehow ended up in, of all places, St. Joseph, Missouri. I don't know why, although I see a reference when I did some research of him being the president of something called the American Paper Stock Company. So it's possible he had a relative, there was a business opportunity, something that landed him to St. Joseph. So the rest of the family came over in 1898, 7 years later. They had 4 more children, and all 7 of those children had children. So by the time we had the great Tulsa reunion, there were like 200 people there. So family had grown quite a bit. People did not, although Jacob and his wife stayed in St. Joseph, the rest of the family did not. People moved to Topeka, Tulsa, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, but
so you had nobody left in New York, in other words, on the East Coast, basically.
On my dad's side, I went to a wedding up there for a cousin on my mother's side, but my dad somehow found some relatives on the Nevelow side. So I will be honest with you, haven't spoke to anyone from there since, but at the time, that was it. And actually, the cousin whose wedding we went up for is a first cousin of mine. He still lives in New York City.
Okay.
Yes, right next door to the Museum of Art, across the street from Central Park. Really nice address.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Yeah.
love going to visit. Love going to visit.
But it's interesting that just about all the rest of you guys ended up in the South or southern part of the U.S.
Yeah. Well, of the 7 siblings, 5 of them eventually worked their way to Dallas.
Okay.
5 of the 7 eventually worked their way to Dallas. The earliest of the group, Aaron and Anna Kaplan, came here in 1914. And Aaron and his son Sherman eventually both became presidents over at Cherith, Israel. Also have a cousin who's on your website, Steve Ungerman, who was a past president over there as well. So had some different folks on my mother's side that were heavily involved over there over the years, and in other things too, Federation and the like. Dad, I'm not sure when he exactly came up to Dallas. I've got to believe he graduated from UT Austin around 1950. I mean, when you think he was in the Army Air Corps,
Right.
when that stint was over, he was admitted to the accounting program over at UT, got his degree in accounting, and then instead of going back to Galveston where everybody else was, he came up north and landed in Dallas. He had a couple of friends from his Galveston days that were up here. And my mother, my best guess was sometime in mid to late 1953 came here. One background story on her family. I don't know anything about her mother's family, but her father, she was at home, she was 9 years old. She's walking behind him at the kitchen table and he just dies on the spot. So she's 9 years old, she has 2 older sisters and a younger brother, and her mother had some family in Des Moines, Iowa. So they leave St. Joseph, they moved to Des Moines, that's where my mother graduated high school, did not go to college. But around the time she was about 30, and that would have been around 53, Anna Kaplan, who was her aunt, who I mentioned earlier, invited her to come to Dallas, move in with her. As she had done she had done that for a couple of her siblings when they were going to school here in Dallas, I think at SMU. And both of them eventually became lawyers. But that was something apparently they did on occasion. So she invites my mother to come to Dallas. And her cousin, Beverly, was married to a man named Al Rosenfield. Well, Al and my dad were friends from their Galveston days. So the story I heard, I get the feeling it got embellished over time, but basically
okay.
This is
Right.
the story I hear,
Yeah.
is that Beverly lets my dad know that his cousin has just moved to Dallas and informs him that he is taking her out on 3 dates. I'd heard variations of the story so many times, I imagine there must be some truth to it. Mm-hmm. And, Beverly was a fairly forceful personality, so it doesn't surprise me that this is the way it worked out. But by December 12th of 54, they're married. And a side note, same day that Bob and Eve Carlback got married. December 12th, 54. So Dave and I have that connection. Both our parents got married the
Same day.
Same day, yes. So that is that part of it. And then
What was your mom doing in the early days when she was here? You said did she have a job? Did she find a job?
She had a job because she always told me of how unpleasant it was to take the bus, I guess downtown, and you would have to be on, depending on where the sun was, you'd be on one side of the bus or the other side of the bus because you didn't want to get fried. It is possible that she did some administrative work for the Ungerman Hill, Ungerman Angrist law firm, because that was the family, the two Ungermans, and even the Angrist, Milton had, his sister Edith had married Meyer Ungerman. So, other than Hill, it was all family. They were in the bankruptcy law business at the time, and collections and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm guessing, I don't know that that's true. I know later in life when she went to work for my dad as a bookkeeper in his CPA practice, that the Ungerman Hill firm was one of their clients, so she would go over there and help with the books.
Okay.
So that was part of what she did. So anyway...
was your dad already established here when they first got married?
I'm not 100% clear. What I recall is that Isidore Angrist, we have another Angrist in here, was a CPA. And he had an office sharing arrangement where my dad got some space and another guy, Jerry Lane, who ended up forming Lane Gorman and Trubitt, they rented out some space from Isidore. He may have had some overflow that he passed to them. But I think before 1960, Isidore passed away and my dad bought the practice. Again, long-term bad, he didn't have, obviously, the cash to do it up front, but he had a number of established clients of Isidore's, and that was the beginning of his CPA practice.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from there, I came along first, and my brothers Craig and Ron. Ron's still here in Dallas. Craig's down in Austin. Craig is a litigator, mostly insurance defense in the early days. I think he's doing a little more variety in his later career. Ron has done some different things, worked for Allen High School and then Green Hill for a number of years because his background is as a social worker. And it turned out to be two totally, although the job description initially was the same, but were two totally different jobs, because in Allen, if someone needed those kind of services, well, the only place they were likely going to get it was from the high school because they couldn't afford it. He gets to Green Hill and everybody is using private counselors if their kids have any needs. So he has to rewrite his job description his first semester there, which he does. He does peer mentoring programs. He does some other things to make his place there. And as I said, he was there about 10 years. You know, the best thing I got out of it was after a period of time, he and one of the other people at the school would reserve for us for 2 hours the gym so we could have a pickup basketball game Saturday mornings. All sorts of fun. Way to go, Ron. But he is now working, he was then working with youth at risk for drugs for the most part through Phoenix, I think it was. And now he is working with senior communities on brain health. Oh. Big important area. And so from time to time when I'll go to this place or that, I'll go, oh, I saw your brother yesterday. So, and he does some private practice on the side also. So he's settled in very nicely. His big thing in the community, though, is must be somewhere between 10, 15 years ago, he got involved in the men's choir over at Anshe Torah. And he really loves the singing, and he eventually formed a band with another member of the choir there, Bruce Katz, called Side Gig. They have performed at the Kosher Chili Cook-Off. They High had a fundraiser, and even 2 years ago for the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, they played at a major fundraiser. And for me, that was too much fun because I walk in the door and it's like half the people there graduated in 1974 like I did from high school. And it's like, really? Our little class is running this place? Are you kidding me? But it was why I didn't realize how many people had been involved over here. And obviously a number of them were. So that was pretty exciting. For me,
Take us back to your younger days a little bit. Like, where did you guys live? Where did you grow up?
sure,
Which schools did you go to? And then, et cetera, after high school, where did you go?
I'll work you through that.
Okay.
My parents bought a house on what's Bowman Boulevard, 9964. And it was between Marsh Lane and Webb's Chapel, just south of Walnut Hill, maybe half a block south. Its claim to fame at the time, because I was born in 56, was that on the north side of Walnut Hill was farmland. Dallas was that undeveloped. I went to school at David G. Burnett, which was on the west side of Webb's Chapel, and to the west of it was farmland. So once a year we'd get to get out of class for a bit and just hang out by the soccer fields when inevitably a fire would start on the farm. And so we'd have a real fire drill, and we got to really practice getting out of the school because we needed to wait for them to get the fire under control before we could go back to class. All sorts of fun. When I started thinking about this talk, two things happened when I turned 7 that sort of sent me in a direction. The first one was my dad every Friday night, my parents, we would have Friday night dinner, and we would say the Kiddush before we would start, but it wasn't the little one-liner. Not only did we do the long Kiddush, but he had another paragraph before that that he threw in that we did also, which was about the beginning of the creation story from Bereshit. At 7, I had heard it enough, I had it memorized. And one night, I don't know if he asked me if I wanted to do it or if I asked him if I could do it, but I had the aptitude for it. I was able to lead the whole thing without any help at 7. And it was like, wow, this is cool. I like this attention. And it was nice that I had an aptitude for the Hebrew. I mean, we obviously hadn't learned how to read it yet, so it was all from rote. The other thing that happened was in my 2nd grade math class. We weren't up to multiplication or division yet, so it had to be subtraction and addition. They give us this sheet of 50 problems, and I blew through it in half the time anybody else in the class could get through. And you'll appreciate this. You're an educator with experience working with the little ones. So I finish. I take my little sheet up to the teacher. She goes, "Do you want to look it over?" I said, "No." So she has me stand there while she grades it. I missed one. Now, this is the difference between the way a young person hears something and the way a teacher intends it. Her message to me is, if you had carefully looked over all of it, you would have likely found the mistake. What I heard was, I blew through it in half the time of everybody else. I still got a 98 on it. Who cares about the missed problem? But when you've got those kind of math skills and your dad's a CPA, going that accounting route later on, you've at least got some basis for doing that. Yeah. So 2 things happen when I'm 7 that just sort of send me on my path. Nothing big until around 12. My dad decides that for my bar mitzvah, we're not going to start me 6 months in advance like everybody else would do. He starts me 10 months in advance. Well, as I said, I had an aptitude for the stuff. Blew through the Haftorah, blew through the Shachrit service with Cantor Sanders, had the Torah reading down, and there were months to go. What are we going to do with this kid? So Cantor Sanders negotiates, because at Sheriff, I can understand this. The man had an incredible voice. Incredible voice. Who wants to hear some bar mitzvah kid when you come to services at the end of the service when you can hear Cantor Sanders? Well, he went to bat for me and Carrie Rudberg, and we got to learn the Musaf service. And we got to lead it on our bar mitzvahs. Well, then I got that done, and it was now still, they're months ahead. What are we going to do with them now? So Reverend Agronoff, who was the Haftorah Torah reader, he brings out something I'd never heard of before. Over at Sheriff, they have 2 Haftorah scrolls. No vowels, no trub, just like the Torah, but thinner, that has the prophets in it. And so he pulls it out, and he goes, try it. Well, I had no prayer. I had looked at that Haftorah so long. I was lucky to get through 2 or 3 verses, said, let me study this and I'll come back. So then the other kids, especially the ones near their dates, start coming up, and they're blowing through it because they've got it all memorized. And they're giving me grief up one side and down the other. What? This is simple. Why can't you do this, Ira? I eventually learned it, so it was nice for my bar mitzvah, other than the sermon and the very first Pesukei de Zimra that Reverend Agronoff, that was his service, and he wasn't letting me have it. I was up there the rest of the time. It was all sorts of fun.
That's great.
Yeah. But this also ties into my dad's involvement over Sheriff. My dad takes different approaches to being involved in organizations than I do. His approach is, if he gets involved in something, he gets really involved. He spent 4 years as the head of the Hever Kadisha, actually did a manual to help mourners. He taught in the high school for the Sunday school 2 courses, one on love and marriage and one on birth and death. I still have people come up to me and from that age group and say how much they enjoyed those courses. The other thing he did for about 30 years was for the high holidays, when the number of people at Sheriff just got too big for the main sanctuary. Even when they brought it into the Kaplan Auditorium, they started a second service in the Toplitz Auditorium. And my dad and Max Globin were the 2 gabbis. Dad did it for about 30 years. And his job was assigning people, that were going to have an aliyah, people that were going to open an ark, whatever needed to be done. He hardly sat in his seat because he's bouncing around the whole place, moving people to this, moving people to that. Well, he gets together that year with Reverend Agronoff to go over all their plans. And as he told me the story, they found out that each of them thought someone else had asked someone to do the Haftorah for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. We're 2 weeks out, and neither of them had done it.
Oh, boy.
So Reverend Agronoff says, well, why don't you ask Ira to do it? And he goes, he isn't even bar mitzvahed yet. I'm saying, I think he can do it. I don't know if he wants to do it, but I think he can do it. Why don't you just ask him? So he comes home, and he asks me. I go, I can get that down in 2 weeks. I would love the opportunity in front of all the adults to be up there to read that Haftorah before my bar mitzvah. And I got too big a kick out of it. Since then, as I said, it's just, find the things in life you enjoy and repeat them. I've since been in other cities where 3 of them I know there was a family member that knew I could do this. 4th one, I have no clue why they'd come up to me. But they would ask me Saturday morning, hey, can you do the Haftorah today? Would you like to? And 2 in New York, 1 in Los Angeles, and 1 in Tulsa. And I take them up on it every time. Just as I said, I enjoy the challenge, and if they don't have someone assigned already, basically they'd have to find someone like me to do it. So I said, sure. So all sorts of stuff. I was fortunate in my junior high school days. Sean Mash had just become the youth director over at Sheriff. Built this incredible youth program. Oh my. Yep. Never seen anything like it. And I was fortunate. I was there at the beginning, and so was involved in the USY group. I did not get into BBYO. Both my brothers were very involved, but I never got into it. I was a USYer, and that's what I did. When it came time to go to Israel, it was between my junior and senior years was 1973, the second year of the Israel teen tour. I went on the USY pilgrimage. I said, well, somebody else can take my spot on this one. Had a wonderful experience. I still have a friend of mine, originally from Reading, Pennsylvania, now in Connecticut, that we're still close friends. He came down for the eclipse. He, his wife, and his oldest daughter, and we have been at each other's bar and pub. We've remained very close friends going back to that, and our connection was in part that about 5 weeks or so in, we went to a place where you could buy a tree and name it after a relative. An uncle of mine, Abe Poses, had just died shortly before that. So we're in line to do this, and I turned to the guy that's our leader, and I go, tell him what happened. I said, how do you spell Poses? And Dave, he shoots it out to me. I go, how do you know how to spell that? Well, I have an uncle by that name. And I go, well, I have an uncle by that name. And it turned out they were brothers, and the relationship was through the wives. My Aunt Gertrude was an Ungerman, and I may have been Rosalie. I forget what her name was, but that was how he was connected. So we proudly say that we're extended family. But just a good opportunity to learn a lot of things. From there, I went to a joint program UCLA had with the University of Judaism. My thought was that I'd get into youth work and education. By my 3rd semester, I saw that wasn't going to happen. If my lack of interest wasn't going to drive it, my lack of Hebrew speaking skills certainly was not. There was no way I was getting through that program. So finished up my 2nd year at UCLA, and my brother Craig was about to start at University of Texas at Austin. So my dad graduated from there. If it's good enough for them, it was good enough for me. And got my accounting degree there. Went to law school after that at the University of Houston. Craig ended up there after I finished also. We somewhat parallel lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, although it took him a little longer to get there. I think he took off a semester here or there and just worked and enjoyed being in Austin. But he eventually worked his way there. But I finished up law school, and while I was in law school, I took off 2 spring semesters to work at a national CPA firm at the time known as Ernst & Winnie. So found that I really did enjoy tax accounting. So had the law degree, had the accounting degree. Actually, the moment I graduated from law school, the rules were to get your license, you had to pass the exam, obviously, but you had to have 2 years of experience, unless you had a law degree. If you had a law degree, you only needed to have 1 year. Mm-hmm. Well, I just worked 13 months while I was in took off from law school at Ernst, And so the moment I got my diploma, I qualified for my CPA license, got a job here back in Dallas, and practiced as a CPA from '83 on.
Right.
So worked out very nicely. Finally, one thing I was proud of was earning my way in as a partner at Weaver. Didn't actually start at Weaver, started at another local firm called Tanbaum, Bimler and Company. Sam Tanbaum was a special mentor. Guy was just incredible, and learned so much from him. But when he was nearing retirement age, as was Bill Bimler and one of the other partners, Sam Catter, they got together with some people they knew at Weaver, back then known as Weaver and Tidwell, and we merged in '95. And I became a partner a couple years later, and stayed there till my retirement end of May 2022.
Mm-hmm. 2 years already.
Yeah, a little past 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah. I even celebrated last week my 2-year anniversary working with my trainer here at the JCC.
That's good. Anniversaries are fun, aren't they?
Well,
Yeah.
They are, and Lord knows she's been a big difference maker in my health so far, so we're going to stay with her. She's great.
Wonderful. So tell us, how did you meet your spouse?
The spouse, yes. We're big fans of the spouse, both of us. I met her originally Halloween of 1983. I was had become good friends with a guy by the name of Ron Schwartz, originally from England, went to school of all places at Alabama, but moved to Dallas. We eventually became roommates, but I think this was before we became roommates. He was throwing a Halloween party with 2 of his buddies. I was there, and that's when I met Sherry. Over the years, we became really good friends. For her 30th birthday, she threw a bash at the Anatole. I don't know if you were part of that or not, but Ron and I, what I did while I was single was, after tax season ended April 15, I would catch a flight either to Atlantic City or to Las Vegas, and Ron joined me for the Atlantic City thing, but we stopped our gambling for a bit, went back to the hotel room, and called Sherry to wish her a happy 30th. So, as I said, we had been good friends for about 5 years before we went on the date. 500 Inc. had in September of '88 had, I think it was called the Montage Art Festival. Was that what it was called?
Sounds like it, right?
I think that's what, I don't know that it exists anymore, but at the time, and I think it was at Fair Park, I'm not sure about that. But date went great. For someone I'd known for 5 years, date was just different. Within 3 months, Sherry founded KVIL through Sharon Carter Travel, had a $450, something like that, package to spend 4 days in Paris, France. I mean, can't even imagine that price today. But part of it is, I'm sure, just the promotion of their name through the radio station. And she called that, what do I do? I said, absolutely. This sounds like too much fun. I'd love to go to Paris, especially if we could do it for $400 and change.
Yeah.
And again, had a wonderful time there. About a month later, I got together with my friends, the Hirschbergs, to pick out the ring, and in April 8, so about a month and a half after that, I proposed, and we were off and running. October 29 that year, we got married, of all places, not at one of the synagogues. She was a Temple Emmanuel person. I was a Sheriff person. And in those days, you were either one of those or a Tiferet person. And since I never got into BBYO, although Sherry and I knew a number of people in common, such as yourself and her good friend Julie Hoffman, now Julie Ruttenberg, a number of people, we'd never met until after I got back from law school. But, so in any case, we got married at the Marriott Quorum. And to officiate, we had her brother-in-law, the rabbi from Little Rock, Gene Levy. And it was really, really special to have him do that. The fun part of the ceremony, of course, was about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. The still photographer leaned back against the wall and killed all the lights in the room. I couldn't look at my brothers for the rest of the ceremony because every time I even started to look their way, I'd start cracking up. So I just focused on her, as I should. We were getting married, and just too much fun. She moved into the condo I had over by Meadow and Central, and in August of '91, we bought the house that we're still in today. Let's see, then December of '96 is when we brought Savannah, Josh, our two children, in as foster children. They were in our foster care for 22 months, after which on October 20th of '98 we adopted them. Again, all sorts of fun, had a bunch of people come over to the house to celebrate, and just a joyous occasion. Interestingly enough, both of them still live within 2 miles of us. Savannah has a 7-year-old girl, Nora, who is at the camp here right now. I was talking to Savannah just before I came here, and I said, I want you to know I was very tempted to go to her camp counselor and bring Nora in here for just a couple of minutes just to get her on tape and then send her back to her friends. But I decided not to do that because, one, if she didn't leave, she'd be the one doing all the talking and I'd just be sitting here. But
kids do steal the thunder, don't they?
Yes, they do that. They do that. Mm-hmm. So that was the creation of our family, and learn different people build families in different ways. And this was our story. We adopted through the state. We actually fostered through the state, so we got to do a 10 or 12 week course through Child Protective Services. I was fortunate that during this time, one of my tax partners was chairman of the committee that oversaw CPS. So on those rare occasions where I was running into an issue and just needed to bounce it off somebody's head, I was bouncing it off the big cheese. So that was really nice. Thank you, John Bradley. That worked out well. But yeah, I mean, for some very, very short periods, the kids, Savannah was in Longview, Josh was in Fort Worth, but basically they've been here in Dallas the whole time as well.
Very good. And what are they doing now? What are they up to?
Josh is working as a commercial electrician. But particularly impressed. Earlier this year, he was with this company on this really huge 1-year, multi-million-dollar job, just the electrical piece of it. And the person that had brought him into the company left to go somewhere else in the middle of the job. And even though Josh did not have his journeyman's license yet, they put him in charge of the job. Wow. With, deep in my heart, I've got to believe 2/3 of the people working for him certainly had been at this business a lot longer than he had. But I was impressed. I mean, yeah, I had worked in my career for 7 years. I ran our Dallas tax department over at Weaver. So once in a blue moon, he'd come to me. He'd have a particular issue with, personnel or this or that, and he'd run me through what the problem was and what he was thinking, and I'd share with him my ideas. a totally different conversation than you have with a teen or a toddler. So that was fun, and particularly one time he had a employee issue, a guy one level below him that was supervising people, and so we talked through it, and I said, well, here's door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. So of course he picked door number 4, but it was a really good, it was a really good answer to his problem. I was, again, very impressed. Savannah has just finished her associate's degree in social work, and again, very impressed. Neither of my kids as high schoolers were really big time students. Josh, about 9th grade, figured out how to make it through those last 4 years, and he did fine. Savannah, I would say last half of her senior year, that had that same moment, but really did well with her studies at the college level, and it's just, I'm sure, the additional maturity, again, having a family. She's married to Devontae, and she just really focused on that. So and of course she has the 7-year-old handful. So all sorts of good things for both of them.
Wonderful. What kind of things are you involved in now, either Jewishly or in the community, or what type of things?
Happy to share. I help out. Okay, I am now a member at Beth Torah. So once a month, on average, I will lead Friday night services there. And if there are holidays come up, twice a month, I'll help out reading a Haftorah over there. I just got my call from the rabbi yesterday. I'm going to get to do Pesukei Zimra Shachrit service one of the days of the high holidays. It was particularly fun last year because while I was leading Shachrit over at Beth Torah, Ron was leading over at Anshe. So the Nevelow brothers had cornered the market on leading high holiday services. So we and then, in addition to, Beth Torah, I do that. Sherith Israel, when I lost my mother, my father, and Savannah had a child that came into the world around 23 weeks, only survived 4. So I've got 3 deaths, and every time, because Sherith offered a daily minyan, I'd go every morning. And since then, when my dad died in December of 2014, I've become a regular of their Wednesday morning minyan. It's sort of a give back where although I don't belong there, I show up once a week to do my part to help make a minyan. On occasion, they'll ask me to lead, whatever the case may be, but I'm involved in that. And going back even farther, my dad moved into the reserve, a retirement community. At the time, it was about 2/3 Jewish, in January of 2011. So once he settles in, he invites me to come because they have a Friday night service there. And when it's over, he turns to me and goes, "You can lead this, right?" I said, "Yes, I can lead this." So he takes me over to the resident who at the time was organizing it. He said, "Would you please add my son to your rotation?" At the time we had 6 or 7 leaders. It's shrunk a little bit now. We're down to 3 of us, but have been leading services Friday nights. Right now it's first Friday of the month over there. And now that some close friends of ours have moved in there some months ago, Sherry's now joining me over there also. All sorts of fun. So I've got that piece. Back in 98, I think, prior to that, I think maybe 96, 95, the Dallas Jewish Community Foundation started putting on a seminar once a year for estate planning professionals, lawyers, CPAs, trust officers, life underwriters, financial advisors. And this thing's really, really grown over the years. I think in '98 I was asked to be on the committee that helped organize that. And I'm still on it. I've been retired 2 years, so I'm the token retired person on the committee, but I'm still on it.
It's a lifetime commitment, right?
I guess.
Apparently so.
I guess. But people over there are wonderful. Just love working with the staff over there. When I was practicing, well, I'm actually on a similar board over at the UT Southwestern Medical Foundation. So usually twice a year they'll invite us. We don't really get as involved in their things, but it's nice you get to go there and hear about what they're doing in brain health, what they're doing in cancer research. It's just phenomenal what they're doing. One time we even got to hear about all their expansion plans, which are just going to be enormous through the end of this decade, what they're doing. And it's just, last time actually we got to even see what some of the researchers were doing. Got to meet with some of them, and that was too much fun. So I've got the Dallas Jewish Community Foundation, got the three things. Sherry's heavily involved in the Dallas Service Forum. And one of the agencies that they help is the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center. Mm-hmm. So like last Tuesday, Sherry and I and another woman from the forum went there. We served meals that night. We've done Easter baskets. We've done Christmas baskets. Wherever I can be of help. She's involved in a lot of other constituents I don't get involved in that much, except for network, where inevitably the food that they're bringing over there is just too heavy, so I get to do the heavy lifting, and I get to drive her over there to drop that off. So all of that going.
Very good.
So I'm sure, and then just since I've retired, I've been over here at the Jewish Community Center 5 days a week. I think one of the best things that's happened to really change the community here was the day they decided to do a major expansion of this building. It, because again, in the old days, you knew the people at your synagogue. Yes, the community center was here, but it was smaller. Its programming was more limited just because of space. And now you've got this double the size building and all sorts of activities. So 5 days a week I'm down here, and always maintained my membership here, but until retirement really wasn't over here a lot. When I was younger, in their men's basketball leagues and pickup games, but not for a number of years. In retirement, I've really enjoyed coming back to the J, seeing some people I know, but like my aqua aerobics people, I don't see any of them outside of the pool. So it's really, I mean, a couple of them I knew from other connections, but it's really nice as a way to, again, get to know a number of people in the community.
Last thing I want to ask you is, since you are a native here, how have you seen Dallas change from when you were young until now?
When I was young, again, you had the 3 synagogues. I looked at some of the videos, everybody says the same thing. But it's fact, you had the 3 synagogues. So the people that you knew in the community, unless you got involved in the Federation or got involved with people or one of those things, was your synagogue people. And the community itself, for the most part, was between Midway and Central, and between Mockingbird and what would become LBJ. When I was little, LBJ did not exist.
Right.
But yes, there was farmland in between it, yes. So that's where the Jewish community was. And by the time I came back after law school, there was a thriving Jewish community in Richardson, a thriving Jewish community in Plano. I still remember when I first moved back, a buddy of mine lived by Alma and Spring Creek. So I went out there to spend time with my old high school buddies that evening, and I called my parents and I said, I'm not really sure where I am. It has to be somewhere near the Oklahoma border, but it's really close to Central. I'll be able to find my way home. Don't worry, just go to sleep. I'll get home eventually. But as I said, the JCC expansion I think was huge, but on top of that, it's just the investment in Jewish infrastructure in this community. The Federation is much more robust. The foundation that I talked about earlier, oh my, has it grown. They've had 3 consecutive wonderful leaders in a row that have really done a fabulous job. And again, building a foundation is hard because money's going out as fast as it's coming in. So getting a cushion to keep growing your asset base is not easy. But again, you've got the Historical Society, you've got HI, you've got, instead of just the Dallas Jewish Home for the Aged, you've got a couple of primarily Jewish retirement communities. The Legacy Mid-Park, oh my, what a place. Oh, they did a wonderful job. Cousins of mine moved in there in the very first group, and when we got past far enough from the pandemic where I could go in, I'm there the first time and I'm saying hello to this person, hello to that person, and although they had lived here in Dallas, they had just moved back from Florida, and they go, you know more people here than I do. And the answer is yes, you're absolutely right. I know a lot more people. You need to get to work on meeting some of these folks. But I'm serious, if you just look at the investment in Jewish infrastructure, this community has done a lot of good things, and there are many organizations, Family Service and what it offers now. Sherry worked there for a while, as did Ron's mother-in-law, long time involved over there. It's fun to be able to participate in it, and for each person, find the things that you have a passion about, because Lord knows there's a lot of opportunity to give back. You just have to find your place.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you asking.
And everything else. Really love it. Thank you. Thank you.